We have interpretation today in English, Dutch and French, channel 1, 2 and 3 for those of you who are in the room. And you can also select, if you're watching the live stream, which language you prefer to follow. All the press materials around this case is going to be published on our website at 12:30, also available in the 3 languages I just mentioned. This press material also contains all the contact details you may need to contact the different authorities and their communication departments for your follow-up questions. It is now my pleasure to first give the floor to Mr. Han Moraal, who is the national member for the Netherlands at Eurojust.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Han Moraal. I'm the national member for the Netherlands at Eurojust. And on behalf of Eurojust, I would like to welcome you here at the premises of Eurojust, the EU Agency for Judicial Operational Cooperation. This welcome is first of all for the invited guests, so for you, the international press. Today we welcome you to listen to French, Dutch and EU judicial and law enforcement authorities who will present to you an international criminal investigation and prosecution. A case about a joint investigation team with the aim to dismantle EncroChat, an encrypted phone network widely used by criminal networks. Today we welcome from the French Prosecution Service Mrs. Carole Etienne, Public Prosecutor from Lille. From the French Gendarmerie Nationale, Major General Jean-Philippe Lecouf, Head of the National Criminal Investigation Department, and Captain Ludovic Dantec from the National Office for Criminal Cases. From the Dutch Prosecution Service, Mr. John Lucas, Chief Prosecutor of the National Prosecution Service. And from the Dutch National Police, Mrs. Janine van den Berg, Chief Constable of the Central Unit, and Mr. Andy Kraag, Head of the Central Investigations Division. From Europol, I warmly welcome Mr. Wil van Gemert, Deputy Executive Director. And last but not least, my colleague from Eurojust, Mr. Baudouin Touvenot, National Member for France at Eurojust. Ladies and gentlemen, both Europol and Eurojust supported the international cooperation between the French and Dutch prosecutors and police with substantial operational support, among others with support for a joint investigation team that has been successful due to the exemplary European cooperation of both law enforcement and prosecution. The results are impressive, and those results will now be shared with you by the French and Dutch authorities and also by Europol and Eurojust. The floor is for the first speaker, Mrs. Carole Etienne.
Bonjour. Good afternoon, everyone. Since a couple of weeks ago, we've got partial or inexact information circulating on different European media on encrypted telephone technology, EncroChat, after they issued an alert, a security alert to their clients on the night from the 12th to the 11th to the 13th of June, saying that their encrypted technology had been, they said, illegally seized by government entities, in their words. They asked their clients to throw away their devices. That is why today it seems to us necessary for us to provide objective information to the public. We would like to stress that our action was not in any way illegal. It was the result of a judicial investigation led by the Public Prosecutor's Office in Lille, an investigation which was opened after a number of seizures of proceeds from international criminal organizations based in Lille. It seems that these encrypted telephone devices and technology were used by and clients at very high prices because they promised anonymity and complete secrecy to their users. So their users were promised complete anonymity, complete discretion and privacy, and they were told that the telephones would not be able to be detected or traceable by any means. This investigation was undertaken by the National Gendarmerie, particularly its Digital Crime Investigations Unit, trying to dismantle criminal organizations and to take down criminal technology, which was very difficult to detect. They did manage to identify a digital encrypted technology which had been distributed under the brand name EncroChat, which was used by criminal organizations. The technical investigations which were undertaken by the gendarmerie officials in a coordinated manner allowed them to see that that encrypted technology solution, which had not been officially declared in France, had been used via servers based in France for an international clientele. The investigation allowed data to be collected on the technical operation of that solution, which led to the placement of a device which allowed them to follow the conversations using those phones. After much research, the analysis of the information that they seized gave them information on broad-scale criminal activities, lots of narcotics and arms trafficking, as well as money laundering activities. They exchanged with their authorities in other countries as well, which allowed them to confirm that information. And then they set up a joint investigation team that was decided on the 10th of April 2012 and 20 under Eurojust with the support from Europol. So they used a particular technology for capturing data, which is in accordance with French law and French criminal procedure. And the use of that technology was also monitored by the investigating judge. Then the public prosecutor's office in Lille opened a criminal judicial investigation on the 28th of April 2020, and they have been in charge of that investigation since then. I think it's important to specify all of this because, once again, contrary to the claims made by the EncroChat network, which had been repeated by the international press, everything that was done in France by the French authorities was entirely lawful and approved. I also want to underscore the European dimension of this operation, as well as the very proactive international cooperation which took place. Since the EncroChat encrypted telephones were widely used throughout the world by criminal organizations, we thought that the information that we got from that operation could be utilized in the context of a joint investigation team. So that data was exchanged with the other members of the joint investigation team, with the support of Eurojust, with the Netherlands, which saw a very large number of users in its territory. And we saw that there was a lot of international criminal use as well, leading to contacts with other countries where these terminals had been used unlawfully by criminal organizations as well, particularly Spain, the United Kingdom, Sweden, and Norway, among others. The transmission and use of data was facilitated to a large extent by Europol, which received information coming from the data capture, which, as I say, was authorized under French legal procedure. And that work by Europol allowed all of that data to be analyzed thoroughly, and it allowed them to alert other countries where criminals might have been active, and making that data accessible to the authorities in those countries in a non-encrypted way, which allowed authorities in many of those countries to detect and to stop many potential criminal activities. The tools that were used did allow them to detect very high-level, both national and international criminal networks, very active criminal organizations in terms of international narcotics trafficking, among other activities, and to highlight a number of upcoming murder attempts as well. More than 100 criminal acts were picked up by Europol. Once again, they constantly got approval from the French-Dutch investigation team, and now we've got the results, the practical results, because as a result of these operations, many arrests were taking place in partner countries, and large quantities of illegal assets were able to be seized. As far as France is concerned, I will just say that the use of information from more than 100 telephones used in France has allowed us to detect a large number of criminal activities, mostly linked to narcotics trafficking, but also arms trafficking and to money laundering as well. I'm going to give the floor to General Leboeuf, who will tell you more about exactly what the French Gendarmerie has been doing in this case. Thanks very much indeed, Prosecutor. Now, this was a very exceptional investigation, which meant for the French National Gendarmerie mobilization of sizable means, as well as its specialized services, particularly its Center for Fighting Against Digital Crime, C3N, which is our cybercrime coordination unit at the National French Gendarmerie. We also involved a number of other administrative units, particularly a large number of research centers, which are located in France. They were all involved in our investigations. I can name the Criminal Research Institute of the French Gendarmerie, and particularly its Electronic Crimes Detection Unit, which recently managed to analyze the first results of this investigation. As I say, this investigation is still ongoing. It has not yet finished. The French National Gendarmerie mobilized completely in this field. They did so since March 2020, when they set up a national investigation cell, which took charge of the dossier. Very quickly, it appeared, as has been said, that investigations would have to be carried out on a much larger scale, not just in France. And that's why a joint investigation team was set up, as decided by the magistrates, particularly in coordination with the Netherlands and with Europol. So that joint investigation team, the JIT, aimed to ensure an exchange of sensitive data which had been captured from the encrypted telephones in question. The National Gendarmerie mobilized, in particular, a command post, as well as a large number of some 60 analysts able to analyze the data from those telephones and to get important information from them so that they could stop a number of crimes from being committed and to improve our knowledge of organized crime, not only in France, but also on a much larger scale. So the investigations which arose from that analysis of data involved, as I say, a number of different research centers, as well as the 4 main investigation units of the National Gendarmerie, as well as more than 60 gendarmerie officers involved in the analysis, and several hundreds of military officers involved in various stages of the investigation. Right now, this is a procedure which involves more than 2,000 pieces of evidence. We have made a great deal of progress in their analysis, and it seems fair to say that it has given us a much broader view of international and criminal activity, allowing us to see unprecedented and extremely interesting evidence on criminal organizations which are involved in narcotics trafficking, but other criminal activities as well. I don't have much more to say, but I would like to stress that there is a great deal of interest now in this type of investigation. This is interest which is felt throughout Europe, throughout the European Union. It's a great example of police and law enforcement and justice cooperation between Europol and many EU member countries, led by Eurojust, which allowed the magistrates and law enforcement officers throughout Europe to work together in order to work effectively against very serious types of criminal activity. Thank you.
Dank u wel. Dames en heren, goedemiddag. Ik dank de...
Thank you very much. I wish to thank the French delegation for having given us all these explanations on the operation, and later on we will present the results of this international cooperation as regards the Dutch side of things. This will be done through the colleagues that are sitting here by my side. To start off with, I wish to refer to the question of encryption. For several years now, we've been very concerned to try and, because of the use of encrypted communications amongst organized crime. Often they use encrypted telephones in order to avoid the risks of eavesdropping. The messages that are used with these telephones sometimes are very difficult to intercept. Often, it's not possible to start investigations or to get evidence to fight against these crimes. It's also known publicly that these types of telephones are used in criminal circles. As a consequence, their possession runs counter to public order. For the users of these telephones, it's always possible to commit serious crimes. For example, international trafficking of drugs, extortion, assassinations, money laundering, as well as other serious attempts against physical integrity, as well as corruption. So EncroChat is basically used to commit crime. The police will tell us a bit more about this a bit later on. Now, the advantages and inconvenience of encryption. Well, we've been discussing this now for many years. I would like to recall that encryption does not really pose problems. We use it ourselves. But as regards the commission of crimes, that is not the case for encryption. In our investigations on EncroChat, we've seen once and for all that these encrypted solutions are also used to commit serious crimes, which cannot remain unpunished. So it's only by studying these means of communication that are encrypted that police and justice services will be able to dismantle these circles, so these criminal circles. In a few minutes, information is captured on different crimes. So it's not really a question of speaking here of the advantages and disadvantages of encryption, but rather of the criminal investigations that can be carried out in these cases. Now, today we're speaking of cooperation between judicial and law enforcement services is something that is absolutely indispensable. That's why I wish to thank our national and international colleagues for all the work that they've carried out until now in the fight against organized crime. It's only through these common efforts that we can get successes like the ones that we will discuss here today. I also like to thank the Dutch Institute of Scientific Police and our colleagues from the prosecutor's office who have known how to protect the information and the different dossiers. And they've waited until today to use some of these informations. Now, perhaps the question you're asking yourself, which is based on a legal basis, is if this is authorized or not in the Netherlands. Is it authorized to use large quantities of data that's been captured and use them in the framework of legal investigations? Now, if I ask this question, I would have to answer yes. Now, in the Netherlands, we asked ourselves these questions. We asked the Rotterdam prosecutor, since this information has been given to us, has not been intercepted by the Dutch investigation services, we tried to make sure that we would have all the necessary guarantees and at the very highest level. Now, since this procedure was launched in France, and well, we based ourselves on the principle that there could be an attempt against the private life of the users of those phones. And so we asked for the authorization of the instructing judge to be able to use that data and the disencrypted chats. This has allowed us to use this data, having obtained the necessary legal guarantees beforehand. So it's very important for us to be able to use this information and this chat in an illicit way in the framework of our investigations, but we're also interested in using them as proof. The instructing judge was asked if he could authorize the investigation services in the Netherlands to use this information and use the or investigate the EncroChat telephones. The judge studied also the urgency in these investigations being carried out. So he gave the go-ahead, he gave the authorization for this go-ahead, he gave the go-ahead for the type of work that we're carrying out, or the way we carry out our work. So that way our authorities can use all the data that's been captured in a licit manner. Thank you very much. And Madam Janine van den Berg now has the floor.
Ongetwijfeld niet ondergaan.
Thank you very much. You've no doubt seen that the police during the past few months have registered a whole series of very large successes. We've seized thousands of kilos of cocaine, we've dismantled laboratories, we've seized synthetic drugs, firearms, and millions of euros. We've arrested several suspects. We've managed to stop assassinations and other attempts against physical integrity of persons. And this is thanks directly to this investigation. Thanks to this investigation, we've managed to read up to 20 million messages in real time. And I'm only referring to the messages that are relevant for the Netherlands. With the authorization of the judge, since the 1st of April of this year, we've managed to follow directly the communications of different criminals. These messages, some of them were so worrying that it went far beyond our imagination. In this chat, we've seen people that were already known by police services, and we've also identified new criminals. It was as though we were sitting at the table where criminals are chatting amongst themselves, really. Now, the EncroChat supplier was under investigation for many years now because of the use of encrypted messages. The criminals could communicate amongst themselves anonymously, and our objective was achieved, and I'm really proud and very happy that this is the case. Most of the messages referred to different types of organized crime that were very violent. For example, drug trafficking, firearms trafficking, kidnappings, assassinations, and cases of torture as well. In this investigation, we've also found suspicions of contacts with the police services, though we're very careful about this and we're carrying out the relevant investigations. Now, in crypto communication investigations, this is not something that has never been done before in the Netherlands. Since 2012, this has been an issue that's been investigated by different teams, like the Crypto Analysis Crime Team. Now, what makes this investigation unique is that at a large scale, we've managed to read all of these criminals live. That allowed us to better understand the situation and the criminal activities that take place in the Netherlands. This solution in France was established in France. It was used all over the world, and the Dutch users were quite numerous. The Netherlands and France shared the information, investigated together, and in order to be more effective, at a given point, we decided to establish a joint investigation team. That allowed us to cooperate internationally. The experts at an international level worked hand in hand with France, Europol, and other international partners. Amongst other things, there are other colleagues from the Dutch National Police that also supported us. Without all of this preparation work and without the experience and the knowledge of all of these colleagues, this investigation could never have taken place. The 26 Le Monde investigation shows that more than ever in the world today, strategic cooperation is more important than ever before. And this is something that I really wish to insist upon today. Police services and judicial services, as well as other partners, fight together against cybercrime all over the world. And this investigation shows that our efforts can be crowned by success. I wish to thank all the police services and the judicial services in the Netherlands and in other countries for their dedication, their experience, and their perseverance as well. Perseverance that has allowed us to achieve these great successes. Our method of work has allowed us to progress in the fight against large organized crime. And this has given us a mind's worth of information that we are using, that we will use in the future as well. Thank you very much.
Goedemiddag. De nationale politie.
Hello to everyone. The national police, during these past few weeks, has been one step ahead of the criminals. And today I'm going to give you a balance of the results. We've arrested more than 100 suspects for serious crimes. We've seized more than 10,000 kilos of cocaine, 1,500 kilos of crystal meth, and more 150,000 liters of precursors used for the production of drugs. We've also dismantled 19 laboratories. We've seized tens of firearms, as well as large sums of money. We've also managed to stop plans of extortion and kidnapping. In the Netherlands during the past few months, we've carried out investigations based on 3 different elements of proof, where there were threats and menaces. Our detectives, our investigators that have a lot of experience in this field had never seen something so large. It allowed them to intervene in time and to stop assassinations and shocking cases of torture that we also detected, and no doubt they have saved many lives. These provisional results are only those opportunities that we have availed of, that we've exploited during these past few weeks. This investigation will allow us to get even more evidence in the future. Now, how have we obtained these results? Well, just simply, we've used the fact that criminals trust in encrypted communication blindly, and through cyber technologies that we've managed to trace all these messages, and this has allowed us to have a clear view of the criminal networks in the Netherlands, their leaders, the trade they're involved in, and their modus operandi. Now, what seems to be possible only in thrillers and in police series, we've actually seen it happen before our own eyes during these past few years. We've actually been able to see what happens in real time with the criminals. And these messages that we've captured give us a very detailed view of daily life in the criminal world. We understand better who these people are and how they work. This large-scale operation changes the situation completely for the police in the Netherlands. In all of the messages that we seized, well, more than 20 million were already relevant for the Netherlands. Just to compare, in the investigations that we carried out in other networks of this type, we had detected 7,000 messages, 1.5 million messages that were relevant for the Netherlands. Up until today, these messages have allowed us to find important pieces of evidence. So this is a important case for the police. That's why we've grouped up 100 of investigators, analysts, and experts that have been working 24 hours a day to avail of all these opportunities to find different pieces of evidence in the different investigations that are being carried out. Now, truly, this is the largest investigation that has ever been taken at a judicial level in the Netherlands. At the beginning of July, the users of EncroChat were informed that something was wrong, and EncroChat decided towards mid-June to advise their users to throw away those encrypted phones, and most of the criminals did so. But it was too late because we already had 1 million messages. So how are we going to follow up these operations? These messages are a real gold mine of information for the Netherlands police. This has allowed us to get pieces of evidence that have taken us years to find. In this investigation, it's the opposite of what we normally find. We have received an enormous amount of information that will allow us to intervene in a much more proactive way. This is it's the evidence that is knocking at our door. We don't have to look for it anymore. And in hundreds of investigations that are being taken place right now on criminal organizations and criminal leaders, well, these messages are giving us elements of proof. And I am convinced that this is going to give rise to other interventions, other arrests. And this investigation proves that criminals think wrongly that they can escape from the law and that they can act in full impunity. But that is not the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Good afternoon. On behalf of Europol, I would like to congratulate all partners, France, the Netherlands, Eurojust, on this very successful operation and express my sincere gratitude for the excellent and intense international cooperation during this investigation. An investigation that, as a consequence, gave law enforcement an unprecedented, as has been said before, look into the heart of organized crime. And organized crime is posing a growing security risk to the EU international security. Over the years, Europe and Europol has witnessed some strong reminders that Europe continues to be affected by organized crime groups who are violent, highly adaptive, and are one of the most pressing security challenges faced by law enforcement. In this regard, and it has been said before, the abuse of the encrypted communication technologies is a key facilitator of their criminal activities. It's clear that criminals now widely make use of complex encryption technologies to protect themselves against law enforcement surveillance and investigations. And it should be emphasized that the platform targeted by this operation catered specifically to the needs of criminals. The phones using the platform were provided to meet the needs of those criminals. The analytical work on millions of criminal communications and data via the platform provides a valuable insight into the dynamics of, for example, global drug trafficking operations and the criminal suspects involved in this business. It became also clear out of the contribution of France and the Netherlands. What we see today is not one big traditional cartel, but a fragmented criminal landscape of different national and international networks with one another and who would work with one another on an ad hoc basis to commit serious crimes. The first analytical work also clearly shows the importance of the role of corruption for crime all along the illicit trafficking chain. And it provides Europol with insights into the use of violence, physical harm, murders, kidnappings, abductions against rivals as part of the debt recovery for revenge and or to maintain discipline and cohesion within the criminal networks. Violence that's often executed in the open and that has direct impact on our EU citizens. We do really know that criminal profits derived from these activities are enormous and are tunneled into a laundered by sophisticated parallel financial criminal systems, providing various illegal financial services such as laundering proceeds, transferring of funds, and reinvesting in our legal economies. So this importance of this operation cannot be stressed enough. As a result of this investigation, on the more general picture, Europol is able to create and provide a unique insight on the scale and functioning of organized crime in the European Union, and even more on a global scale. This very valuable information will help law enforcement in Europe now and in the future to fight criminals more successfully in their tasking. As said, a large number of arrests and seizures have already been taken place, and violent crimes have been prevented. But so many will follow, with hundreds of new investigations that will come out of this actionable intelligence, not only in France and the Netherlands, but throughout Europe and even beyond. And this will have a severe impact on criminals for a long time. Next to this more general overview, as was mentioned by our partners, our operational commitment as Europol was focused on the active support and the direct follow-up of intercepted and received data. Europol has been actively supporting the investigations led by France and the Netherlands since the very beginning, from the start. Since April, daily coordination meetings took place in our headquarters between all members of the joint investigation team. A large cross-director team of Europol's experts and analysts, with the help of specialized tools and more than 20 different language skills, selected and read millions of messages in real time, 7 days a week, cross-checked them and analyzed them into intelligence that we were able to provide in a legal way towards the right law enforcement partners, not being the two leading countries that we just mentioned. We did this in a fast and secure way via our system Sienna. In this way, informing those law enforcement partners on a possible serious crime to be committed, on planned rip deals, on engagement of hitmen, on planned murder attempts, on large-scale drugs transports, on money laundering, and other examples to be followed. Both our Serious and Organized Crime Center, the Cyber Center, and other parts, including our new established Economic and Financial Crime Center, supported this investigation. The operation was also partly funded by the EU Impact funding mechanism coordinated by Europol. And thanks to the operational and analytical support, a secure platform for information exchange, and the financial support, we could provide an indispensable added value towards the national authorities. The success of this operation is a strong signal towards criminals that they are no longer safe from law enforcement. In the next days, weeks, months, and even years, Europol will continue putting all its efforts in supporting police and customs in the EU to track down the criminals who are putting the lives of EU citizens in danger, who are destabilizing our economies and are threatening our democratic values. I think that the results that we are able to announce today are just the beginning. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous.
Good afternoon, everyone. Eurojust, which is the European Agency for Criminal Judicial Cooperation, and more specifically the French and Dutch desks here, are very happy to welcome you here at Eurojust for this press conference in order to deal with a highlighting dossier in terms of judicial and police cooperation. This dossier illustrates the strength of judicial and police cooperation in Europe when they're working towards a common goal. The dossier which the judicial and law enforcement authorities in France and the Netherlands have presented you today proves that. Technically and legally speaking, it's a very complex dossier of international scope which required high-quality cooperation and coordination. The hand-to-hand work done by national authorities, Eurojust and Europol, have allowed us to take down EncroChat, the network of encrypted communication used by criminal organizations. To look a little bit at the history of this dossier, the French desk at Eurojust was contacted by the Prosecutor's Office of the JRS in Lille in April 2019 with a request for deep cooperation with the Netherlands in looking at an encrypted communication network. Starting then, Eurojust hopped on board in providing support and assistance to the national authorities. In order to respond to the needs of coordination, the French desk at Eurojust organized 5 coordination meetings over a period of a bit more than 12 months, of which 3 were held bilaterally with the Netherlands and 2 involving a larger number of countries, because there are a number of other countries involved in this dossier as well. Those coordination meetings were important because they allowed us to bring together judges and law enforcement authorities representing cultures, languages, and legal systems which were sometimes very different, but which allowed fluid and precise exchanges without any risk of incomprehension because of high-quality simultaneous interpretation, which we're using today as well. They represented a precious gain of time moving forward in this dossier and establishing a judicial strategy and coordination of investigations amongst the different actors. Eurojust also gave its legal and technical support in setting up a joint investigation team in April 2020 between France and the Netherlands, with the participation of the agencies Eurojust and Europol, whose key role in providing constant technical and human resources I would like to underscore. The EIO was a very important tool for cooperation in this dossier because it created a streamlined framework for exchanges between the national authorities. I'd also like to highlight the constant engagement of our 2 assistants, Julie André for the French desk at Eurojust and Renske Makor for the Dutch desk here, led by Hans Moral, who introduced this press conference. It is this Eurojust action which was carried out throughout 2020, despite the health crisis, which has not stopped any activities in Eurojust or Europol. In addition to the tools of cooperation, it is first and foremost the spirit of teamwork and mutual trust amongst our countries and everyone involved, which allowed this action to take place and to succeed. That is the reason for the success of this dossier. It is success which is shared by national authorities, both in judicial and law enforcement authorities, all working together towards the same goal with the support of both of these important European agencies. Thank you very much for your attention.